you can't shoot a deer out of its bed, and you can't show skinning a deer. You can't drink beer, like shit like that.
Wow,
that's just
That's
not
un-American.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was Pursuit. Like, I didn't think Pursuit had any standards.
I want to be drinking a beer, skinning a deer, and shoot one out of the bed at the same time. Like, I mean, and I can't do any of that.
Be laying in his bed with a bush light.
And we're back.
Bam, coming in on 40, man.
Are we there yet? No, 39 ish. It's hunting season though this weekend.
Just about. Yeah, we're turning the page here.
Got a big front that came through almost too early. Not that I am not excited for this weekend, but I want this front about 2 weeks from now, 2.5.
Or even just a day later would have been sweet. But
yeah, I mean you see it now because I think it swept through Illinois 2 days ago, and so this morning it seems like, and last night there was a lot of activity. So it's gonna be close. I would bet we see a lot of activity on our cameras tomorrow.
Tomorrow would be the day. I mean, if you're gonna pick a day, but
yeah. But so you're going to Ohio. You and Bachman are going to Ohio tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and his girlfriend's flying in a day later than I thought. So we've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, if we need it.
Yep.
Or if we want it.
Yep.
Which, if we do that, I'll just work from the farm Monday.
Which I think we talked about it the other night. You've got a pretty good buck on camera. It's just wind.
Yeah.
Yay or nay.
Well, I've only seen him there on south or southeast winds, and he's coming from the west, northwest when that happens.
And we're getting west, southwest winds this weekend.
Which is better for the, there's no stand there. I would do a run and gun with the hawk saddle probably is how I'll do it. But that bedding area where I think he'll bet on any kind of a west wind is kind of to the north. So, a south-southwest wind is not really ideal. A west-northwest wind would be the best to have it in his favor. And also, there's if people could understand this, myself included, but we'd kill a lot more deer. The way that works, man, especially on a bait pile, is those bucks are not going to come in any direction other than downwind.
100%.
So if you can find a way to approach and position yourself over that end destination, whether it's a bait pile or a food plot or whatever it is, that also allows the buck to come from the opposite direction, but with the wind in their favor. It's just the concept of that inside trail. If you find a food source, you go in the woods 20, 30 yards, you'll find a trail paralleling it, typically on the downwind side. The trick is getting on the opposite side, from where the buck is coming from, and with the wind in his favor from that food source. And so at the very last moment where he thinks he's smelled everything in that food source and is able to approach, he's right
That's
there.
Where he's gonna get him. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, we were just talking that, this kind of front that we've got coming through here, and, it's definitely getting deer. We saw, was it yesterday? We had a pretty good buck in Illinois on one lease. This morning we had another good buck on an Illinois lease.
Which one was yesterday?
One on Hobart.
Oh, yeah. 3-year-old-ish, right?
There's 2 different bucks there.
Okay.
Yep.
That one's interesting. I've never seen such a black and white difference I don't think it's just that, they're going to come find this scrape now. It's literally that the habitat in there is such a high stem count to take away from Sturgis.
Yep. They don't want to be in there.
They don't want to be in there with their velvet. Yeah, they wait until their antlers are hard enough that they can go raking through that stuff.
And I wouldn't be surprised if not already very soon that corn is down on his property. The beans will still be standing for probably another couple weeks, but
yeah, we still don't have a good picture of that real wide one we saw, huh?
We've seen him in the background a couple times. We've got that tall one on camera. So there's definitely 2 shooters that we know of in one group. There was one across the road that was a giant. So, I mean, there's definitely some big bucks. I doubt, based on the size of the one we saw this morning, but, we saw that probably 160-ish 10-point by that lease. And that one this morning was probably 150-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Still a good, great buck, but probably not that 10 we saw in that field. So, yeah, I mean, they're starting to move. Acorns are just raining down. Right now, they're flush with food. So it's not that I don't think that they're moving. It's just they're still not expanding those home ranges quite yet. When the ag goes away, that's when all of a sudden you're going to see where'd that buck come from? Because he's going to be on his feet moving a lot more. So So we'll see. But I mean, looking at that where we're at, a couple of days ago, Midwest got a big front going through. And so our guest today, Brennen Nading, is an Iowa guy. He's currently in Wisconsin doing some things. But, the guys from the Breaking Point, we've watched their stuff for several years.
A couple of years now anyways.
They were one of the guys that we originally got on when we started talking about the Dakotas and hunting there. And I feel like it seems like they've expanded their crew a lot in the last couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to kind of hear, from Brennen, like what those guys are getting into. And really, he'll probably be a good one to talk to about this whole new, YouTube wave coming across of demonetization of these platforms.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see what his take is on that. And, if they have a strategy of, what's next, what do we do next?
Yeah. I think the Breaking Point, for me anyways, was one of those, like, there was like a handful of YouTube channels or, groups of guys that seemed to pioneer like away from some of the major networks. And that was, happening, I guess it would have been like
4 or 5 years ago.
3, 4 or 5 years ago at this point. To name a few, I guess you had like, you're gonna have to help me here. You had the Breaking Point.
Mm-hmm.
Midwest Whitetail was kind of a class of their own.
Whitetail Edge and Ben was kind of breaking out from
Whitetail
that.
Edge definitely was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few other, like there's a Team Radical who I want to talk to at some point.
Yep.
There just seems to be, and then Sturgis came up and over that, in a big way. He just had a different.
But yeah, they were kind of trailblazing this, like, we're still going to make a cool show, but we're not going to buy $100,000 time block on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. There maybe even that Dominator.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys had, a thing going.
And I bet Brennan's got a good story. I mean, because, man, it was really tough early in that game. And we kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but it was really tough early in that game to say, listen, we produce this high-quality show, which they do, but we're just going to put it on YouTube and on these platforms. And, and most manufacturers were like, well, cool, I'm not going to pay you for that. Like, you're just making content and put it free. And this was prior to everybody realizing how valuable content was. And so, you were trying to scrap things together at that point. Whereas now, I mean, if you make great content, like, I won't say people are lining up, but if you can make the case for it, you've got really bright future in terms of how you can partner with companies and grow your own brand.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was mainly like, oh, you've got a YouTube show? Cool. I'll give you some product.
The Hunting Public is obviously one I should have mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I'll be interested to hear Brennan's take on just the origins of their show and kind of where it's going. And it seems like you said, they've added quite a few members to their team this past season. So
yep, cool. Let's bring them on.
Cool. Hey, welcome back, sir. You got it, sir?
Gotcha.
Cool. I always feel like it's so much pressure for the guests when it's like you've been sitting there waiting, and then it's just us both looking at you like, hey.
At least this isn't like a live thing. It's not like you're on live TV. Yeah. Everybody's watching you.
It's all mental. There's no pressure.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, well, cool, Brennen. We appreciate you jumping on, man. Jared and I were just talking about, I feel like we've kind of watched the Breaking Point evolve here, over, I don't know, last 3 or 4 years. And, I guess just for everybody to kind of get a baseline, maybe give our listeners a little bit of information of kind of like your involvement with Breaking Point, how it got started, and kind of the journey that you guys have taken. Because we've said out of the gate, it felt like you guys were one of those shows that said, hey, we're going to make a high quality episodic content piece of show, but we're not going to go the standard route of television, right? We're going to go this digital route. And, we know working with manufacturers and stuff that 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't easy, right? People looked at you and were like, oh, cool, that's a great show, but like, you're on YouTube. I'm not going to pay you to do that stuff.
Correct. Yeah, so we are with the Breaking Point, we are filming our 9th season this fall right now. And it started, I met my business partner, Mike Mansell, in college. We both went to the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. And shortly after college, both him and I have been running around with cameras and more or less filming with friends and stuff like that up until that point. And then after college, we had started investing in newer camera gear, Mike was starting to teach himself to edit at the time. And we really just said we were starting to put enough money into it. We decided that we either need to go all in on this or we just need to axe the idea altogether because we were starting to spend too much money and stuff like that. So, yeah, we did it. We actually, our first year, we aired on Pursuit Channel for 2 years and then Wild TV up in Canada. And about that time is when TV numbers were on the decline. And yeah, we made that jump to digital. We were actually on our way back home from ATA the 1 year, and we were just sick of how everything was going with TV numbers. Had all those meetings at ATA, and people weren't really interested in TV anymore. And we were kind of brainstorming on the drive home from ATA, and had the crazy idea of airing our next season pretty much on Facebook. At that time, we didn't even have a YouTube channel, and we did it. We went digital that first year, and we started making a bunch of phone calls, and we got on I think that first year we were on 10 different digital streaming platforms, and our analytics were like night and day difference from TV. And then we just had to figure out how to sell this to brands and partners that we work with. And because that was new at that time, that was new to everybody. Nobody else was 100% digital. They might have streamed stuff on digital platforms here and there, but they were still clinging to TV. And we just went all in on it. And it was the best decision we ever made. Now I think we've trimmed back a few platforms that we air on, but I think this year we're still on 7 or 8 digital streaming platforms, and it's been good.
Can you rattle some of those off? I think originally when I found you guys, Brennen, it was on Carbon TV. I don't know. Are you guys still on there, or?
We were on Carbon. I think actually we were probably one of the first 10 shows on Carbon TV.
Yeah, I think that's
when
right.
They started. And we had great numbers at Carbon for probably 3 years, and then. And this is my opinion only, but the platform almost got saturated, I feel like.
Yep.
And they brought on so many shows, and it was just kind of our stuff kind of got pushed to the back.
Yep.
And our numbers were shit. So we started focusing more on YouTube is one that we're pushing big now. We still have a really good following on Waypoint TV.
Yep.
Facebook, IGTV, Vimeo, My Hunt Fix, which is up in Canada, Wild TV. We still air on the regular TV up there. I'm probably forgetting some, but those are our main ones. And then we have our own Roku.
Yeah. The reason I stopped watching Carbon TV was because of those freaking Chevy commercials, and those alone.
It was either Chevy or Daniel Defense. Like those were the only. Those were the other one. Yeah, that was it. Other than that, it was just like
I heard
other.
That guy from the Chevy commercial every 30 seconds. I was like, I just can't do it. Like, there's no content worth enduring this.
Yeah, that was. I think that was a big kind of learning curve for those guys when they started getting in the monetization side of things. And then, like Brennen said, the amount of content they brought in. They were promising a lot of the shows, like, hey, we're going to give you this much, awareness, publicity, and
Brennen
stuff.
Experience, they did for a while because there was a few of them. I think like Team 200, I thought was another one. Ben's, Whitetail Edge.
I think Team Radical was on there.
Maybe, yeah. There was a few that got like a lot of love for a couple years, and then, like you said, Brennen, I agree. They brought all kinds of stupid shows on. They started wanting to be like a redneck lifestyle type of a.
Well, yeah, they had like the farmer shows and things like that, which I'm not saying were bad, but
they weren't good.
Well, compared to what they were trying to make themselves into originally, it was a deviation.
Dude, so many channels seem to do that. Like, it's like a.
Yeah.
It'd be like October 15th in the evening, and I go and it's like tarpon fishing. What is this?
I know, man. Well, and that's that regionality that kind of get stomped out. Brennen, question for you, and this is something that obviously it's what's today, 23rd of September. Over the last 10 days, there's been a lot of conversations around YouTube's monetization policy change, right? And we see like guys like Seek One get a 30-day suspension and monetization for show and kill shots, basically is what it comes down to. how are you, I mean, obviously hearing you're on these other platforms, you've diversified, but in your head as a content producer who's on YouTube and probably has worked really hard to build that YouTube up, like, what are your thoughts around that right now?
Maybe before you answer that too, Brent, would you say YouTube is your guys' biggest platform at the moment?
That is we are pushing YouTube the most right now. Our YouTube's only, I don't even think we're at 11,000 subs right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're just shy of that, but we haven't really put effort into YouTube until this probably the last year and a half. And it is really starting to get traction. So to see that stuff like what happened to Seek One happen is kind of, but at the same time, that's kind of why we spread ourselves out on so many platforms. That way, if one of them does crash, we've got something to fall back on. And that was kind of our whole goal with the digital stuff from the beginning, was put our stuff everywhere. If something falls through on one of them, we've got something else to back us up. And it's scary times with anything can happen in the digital world at any point, and you just never know.
Yeah, I think we kind of all saw it coming, right? I mean, it's not that much of a surprise, but it is scary to see that it's like actually here, and this is kind of what we're dealing with. I think the hard part, and like to your point, is, and I'm not putting any of these guys down, but let's say Seek One or Hunting Public, like a lot of these guys are depending on that monthly YouTube revenue as a huge part of their monetization for their business. And so you get thrown into a 30-day, quarantine box basically, and you can't collect money, especially for Seek One in October. I bet that's their biggest numbers probably. And then they don't even know when they resubmit if it's going to actually be approved. So now you might be missing out on November. And now the two biggest months, which I can't even begin to put a dollar figure to what that means to them, but I bet it's substantial. In it, you kind of, again, no knock to them, but you kind of pigeonhole yourself here to where I bet you relied on YouTube money more than you thought you were relying on it.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely.
Is that your understanding, is that it's a policy change regarding
100%.
Kill shots specifically?
Kill shots are the imminent action of like an actual impact shot. So like if it looks like it's going to, like you can't even show like the arrow coming close to making the strike. And so what are you going to do? Like you're not going to cut out the kill shot.
Yeah, usually I'm fast forwarding to that part.
Yeah. And so, there was a bunch of us that were in a kind of a just back and forth. It was Czar and Duncan and these guys. And it was like, Czar saying like, hey, we might make a director's cut where we cut that out. And it's like, well, dude, why would I watch it then? Like, I'm not going to watch it. Like, if you're going to have the real thing somewhere else on Vimeo, potentially, okay, cool. I'll just go watch it on Vimeo. I'm not going to watch your YouTube anymore. And so it's one of those things that, we have to adapt to. And then the other option is, okay, cool, just don't monetize. You can have that stuff on YouTube. They're not saying that content can't be on YouTube. You just can't monetize it. So again, per Brennan, like what you were discussing there and kind of how you guys have spread yourselves out and probably with sponsors and things, and this is kind of how we've done things with Hunter, like I don't want to not monetize on YouTube, but if I have to in order to show the right content, okay, then I just got to make sure that I can make those monies up elsewhere.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep, for sure. I mean, in a lot of on our media side, the Breaking Point's not all that we are doing. It's definitely our passion project, and it's probably 60% of our media company's income, but we are doing a lot of stuff outside of the outdoor industry as well to make ends meet. So if it does come down to that on YouTube, it's not, we're not set up to where it's going to make or break us, but
well, and I think one thing too, Brennan, with what you guys have done, and this is, I think, what kind of attracted me to it is, one, you guys are making entertaining content, but you're just making good content, right? And far too often, some of these shows, I won't say are like bad, but they're not purposeful in what they're creating and why they're creating it. And so I think as you get to some of these manufacturers and even your partners and sponsors, like these guys are craving content. Like they definitely don't have enough. And so as long as you're making purposeful content for them, you're likely going to have their backing for, a decent amount of time here in the future because, content's not going anywhere. Everybody's going to need it and they're going to need more of it every year.
For sure. No doubt about that.
So I guess maybe so who are some of the partners that you guys are working with right now on a manufacturing side?
Oh man, I'm just gonna go right down the list.
Yeah, hit me.
HHA, Elite, First Light, Bucket, Ready Seed, Baronet Blinds, River's Edge Tree Stands, Schwacker Broadheads, Tack Vanes, Khmer Deer, Kill Drift, Hunter Safety System, Phone Scope, Rambo Bikes, Moultrie Cameras, Luminoc, Venato, Victory Arrows, Scent Crusher, Lacrosse Footwear, Vortex Optics, Thermoset, Morel Targets, Carta Maps.
There you go, man. And I assume, like, going through those brands, like, again, most of those brands, if not all those brands, are just like content hungry. Like that's just, seems to be the big thing. And that's where, I guess, and you obviously have lived it, so you know it better than I do, but my guess is that when you guys were kind of first trying to sell this to people, I think probably the one thing that we found kind of broke the mold more than like, hey, we're making the show, it's digital, blah, 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 is, hey, we're also going to be making a bunch of content that we're going to give you guys to use as your brand.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of our agreements with companies is based solely on content creation. The show, I think, is almost just a bonus that they get in-show integration. But it's, photos, social videos, ads, stuff like that we're producing for these brands. That is really like the important stuff. Just tag social posts. A lot of it's content creation. The show is a bonus, really.
Yep. That makes sense. So you guys are entering a nice season. One of the things that Jared and I were talking about is it seems like, maybe in the past 2 or so, you guys have started to add some more players into the fold on your end. Yep. And is that mainly because originally when you guys got this thing started, you're like, man, just for a few of us to try to make all this content's a ton of work.
Yeah. Like I said, we started out on TV, and when we're at that level, you had to have 13 episodes. You had to have 13 episodes for TV. And so that was kind of always our goal. We were always able to hit that number, luckily. But once we went digital, there's no cap on how many episodes you can have or what you need. So our goal was to put out as much quality content as we possibly could. So in order to get above 13, we needed to add more guys, because we are stretched pretty thin as far as hunting and traveling, and we're not going to canned hunts where we roll into an outfitter for a 4 or 5 day hunt and have a pretty good chance of shooting stuff. A lot of our stuff is, almost all of our stuff is do it yourself. We do hunt some private land, but we also hunt a lot of public land, and we might spend 15 or 20 days in a location throughout the fall, and you can't put up big episode numbers when you're spending that kind of time just to create one.
Yeah.
So our goal on adding people was to put out additional quality content, and we were very selective on who we added to the crew. We wanted to, kind of nitpick through people who were already experienced, already invested in gear, and kind of had a good background in it. And we did what we call a draft a couple of years ago, and we pretty much had a questionnaire where we'd have people answer questions like, what state do you hunt? How many times, or what other states have you hunted? How many days a year do you spend in the tree? Blah, 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 blah. And then we had them put together like a 60-second reel. And we tried to find people that were kind of already like hunting pairs, like hunting and filming each other. Mm-hmm. That way, we wanted to bring people on that we didn't have to cater to, more or less. We wanted them to be able to just keep doing what they were doing and submitting their content to us. We provide them with everything they need, and it's worked out good. We picked up some really good people.
Was there any issues kind of like adjusting to or setting expectation for like level of quality to say like, hey, here's the standard that we have here at the breaking point. Here's what it like kind of needs to look like. It seemed like there was kind of a learning curve to be able to hit that, or?
I wouldn't say it was a huge learning curve. The people that we added on were familiar with our show, and they kind of knew our filming style.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we try to do at least twice a year. Sometimes more. We'll get on actually like Zoom calls just like this, and pretty much just a bullshit session and like a critiquing.
Yep.
Like Mike does the bulk of our editing, and Aaron's starting to get more and more involved. And those guys are the ones that get all that footage in their hand. They see all that raw footage, and they go through and they pretty much tell everybody, what they're doing right, what they could improve on. And just those meetings and kind of touching base with everybody and kind of planning stuff out throughout the year has really kind of put us ahead of the game as far as staying on track and everybody kind of shooting what they should be shooting in the field.
In terms of so when you say shooting, I assume you mean video wise, but is there like an expectation of quality of animal as well, or like?
No, well, we've never set that bar. I mean, I think that's what's different about us. I mean, we'll sit behind a 120-inch deer just as proudly as we will behind a 150-inch deer.
Mm-hmm.
We'd never tell anyone on the crew that, hey, don't shoot that deer. I mean, most of us are trying to shoot, quality deer. So we're not shooting tiny stuff, but for the most part, everybody just kind of does their thing, shoot what makes you happy and tell that story, how it really is. You don't have to mock it up to make it sound good or look good. Just be yourself and keep the cameras rolling.
Absolutely. So what is that? What has your group kind of grown into now? Like what states do you have like the biggest presence in? And, we see a lot of hunts coming out of the Dakotas. It seems like you do.
Yep.
A significant amount of hunting out there, and also Wisconsin. I assume yours are in Iowa too. Is that kind of what it's looking like, or?
So I moved down to Iowa in 2013, and then Mike actually just moved to Iowa, bought a house down there this year. Mike and I are in.
Brennen, was deer hunting the major motivator for moving out there?
100%. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I decided that how it kind of all started is I had a good buddy that took me shed hunting down there. And once I'd never been to Iowa in the deer woods, and I went down there on one shed hunting trip, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is stupid. Like I grew up in Wisconsin. I cut my teeth hunting in Wisconsin, and I seen Iowa, and I think it was about 9 months later, I decided I'm moving. Like all my family, everything I've ever known is in Wisconsin. But I found myself looking for jobs in Iowa, and I found one within a few weeks. I put in my 2 weeks notice at my job in Wisconsin and found a place to live and put everything I own in a U-Haul, and down the road I went, and I've been there since.
You got a wife?
But no, I had one once. It was short-lived.
Deer hunting will do that.
No.
You're like, yeah, but then I moved to Iowa, so.
Well, yeah, but anyway, Mike's down there now, and then we've got two brothers, Nate and Nick Monzik. They are out of Missouri, pretty close to St. Louis,
okay.
But they do most of their hunting in Missouri. They travel a little bit for turkeys, elk, but most of their whitetail stuff is Missouri, and then the rest of the guys are all up in Wisconsin.
Very cool.
Did you say you have?
We hunt everywhere.
You say you have a day job in addition to all the media stuff you guys are doing?
Nope. I was able to walk away from my job 2 years ago now.
Wow.
I worked for a pest control company out of Des Moines in Iowa when I moved down there, and I had a really good gig, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life. This was what I wanted to do. And so we just kept trying to grow this business, and it finally got to the point where I was able to walk away from my job and never look back.
That's the way to do it, man. Very cool. Yeah, I think it's interesting as you guys, you kind of see that as you can find key team players that are able to provide content. And, again, the more content you have, the more selective you can be in what you're showing and what you're airing. And then just the more that you're able to give back to your partners. I think that as like a lot of people are listening to this, there's, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's probably as many, if not more. I mean, it seemed like there was a boom probably in the 5 to 8 years ago when people just were like, yeah, I'm going to start filming my hunts, right? And everybody and their brother, I felt like, was filming their hunts. And I assume that some of that's still around. Some of it has kind of gone back to like, well, I'm just going to hunt. Like, I just want to get back to my roots and hunt, and I don't need people to see it. But I think that people who have stuck with it have realized that there's, it's kind of a second passion hand in hand with hunting. Like, just the other day, I was going back and watching some of the hunts that aren't like necessarily the best film, but from 4, 5, 6 years ago. And it's cool to be able to relive that stuff, as the hunter.
Some of your hunts?
Yeah, just some of mine that I had, and it's just a lot of it self-filmed back then, because I didn't have a camera guy in the tree.
Yeah, I think I kind of have split feelings about that in that, like, for personal use, yeah, obviously it's awesome to have that stuff to go back and relive. And even from like a YouTube standpoint, like, it's cool, I think, for people to be able to post their hunts and stuff. But I also think it's not necessarily those content producers' faults as much as it would be like the platform of something like a YouTube is. Like, that I think played a really big part in the dilution of like the hunting industry. Because before that, you had, what at the time people would call some really quality productions, like whatever that would be, your bone collectors, your Jim Shockeys, like the guys that had
a big budget,
a high quality production and a budget to put behind producing a show. Now kind of buried on some of these digital platforms with guys that arguably are just as good at hunters, but, aren't turning out nearly as high quality of a production. And so it's not at all to say that those guys aren't as good as of hunters or deserving of a TV show or something like that. But like, it definitely seemed like at that point, the industry just like threw their hands up. They're like, we don't know. Like, we're not going to put money towards TV because clearly there's something to this digital, but we don't know who to invest with on digital because there's so much of it, and some of it's okay, and a lot of it's garbage, and some of it's pretty good.
Well, and the tough sell, and Brennen, probably, and where you were, especially in those early days, was that if you put it on Carbon or on YouTube or something, it was a free platform. Whereas when you were on TV, people are looking at you and saying, okay, like, I know you're paying X thousands of dollars for this TV block, so you have an investment in that, thus then justifying a sponsorship. It wasn't that you weren't investing in the content and production on YouTube and stuff, but when you were putting it on that free platform, most of these manufacturers are like, cool, like, what do you want, product? Because they didn't see it back then as content effort, to be produced. They just looked at it as, you make content and put it on a free platform. These guys make content, put it on a platform that costs $200,000.
I think was really short-sighted of a lot of manufacturers. That was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it was definitely something that was hard-lived. And frankly, I think a lot of these manufacturers probably missed out on opportunities.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Where they could have made a small investment, and guys like Brennen and his team and other digital producers at the time, and now have grown into, like, look at the amount of content you could have got over the last 7 years, where, again, no knock to them, but if you look at some of these big TV guys who are getting paid 100 plus K, like, they're not giving you anything. Can't get anything out of them, besides what they're producing for themselves.
Yeah, it's just a different mentality. And it's a shame that there isn't a network that can afford to or has chosen to, pay. Well, I know that there are some, like, I think some guys are maybe starting to purchase content, but like, really, that's what gives content producers the freedom to put out, authentic content, not tailored to partners, which inevitably, like, we have to do, because that's what pays bills for us to be able to do anything.
It's a slow adoption, and I don't necessarily know all the inner workings of some of these, like, Waypoint and stuff, but like Outdoor America, for example, I know that those guys are starting to pay, content producers to make original content, short stuff, right? 4 times a month, we'll pay you X thousand per month. And then on top of that, if you air your content with us, like Carbon used to do and some of these other ones, we'll give you 30% of the ad rev share. Well, the platform has to be successful in the amount of money they're bringing in order for that 30% to actually mean anything. And it definitely isn't going to replace YouTube overnight, which is essentially functioning in the same way. If you're monetizing your videos, you're making a percentage of the ad that's run by Google over top of that. But eventually, it might catch up to where you can be on a call it hunting or firearm friendly platform, whether it's Outdoor America or whatever, get a percent of the ad revenue. In addition, maybe they're paying you for content, and that monetization strategy there is basically fruitful. And if that's the case, man, sky's the limit for the content producers on our end. That's where we have to get, right? Standard TV, like if I'm watching Deadliest Catch or Wicked Tuna or whatever, right? Those Discovery Channel and those guys are buying that content. They're paying those guys to make that content. We are literally the only industry that is still sitting in a spot where basically we're paying to make our own content and then give it to someone else. It's so ass backwards. It's crazy, but it's just because everybody has to get on board, from the platforms to the content producers to the manufacturers who control most of the budgets. And if they don't, it can't happen. So we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, and it'll go against what probably a lot of these platforms are doing, but like I just I don't see like standalone hunting specific platforms being successful ultimately. Like your Mossy Oak Go, your Realtree 365s, like those things are cool, you know. It's a nice like intermediary for now to be able to find some content, you know, but ultimately I think convenience wins with the consumer at the end.
That's why it's still Facebook and nothing else but Facebook.
Well, that, or it's like, well, I guess, you know, my hunting show's not on my cable box anymore, or whatever I'm using to watch, like Amazon Stick, or I guess it's just gone, you know. And unless I really want to go find it, which I can go to YouTube essentially, and I can find that stuff. Ultimately, if a network can't figure out how to have, you know, great lifestyle content, news that also includes hunting in some aspect, like that's the only thing that I think is gonna outcompete like YouTube in any way.
Yeah, because I mean, Brennan, right now you basically have many taken the mindset of sum of all parts, right? Let's be on all of these different platforms, and there's some people that will watch this platform and some people that will only watch this platform, but together you're capturing an analytical number that is substantial, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think last year we were sitting across all platforms. I think we had 5.5 million views. And it was spread out pretty evenly across all of those platforms. So, I mean, a couple of them are a little higher than others, but all of them are contributing. I mean, we've got, you know, a different crowd that'll watch on Waypoint or YouTube or wherever. And it's, everybody's kind of got their platform that they like to go and find content on, and to each their own. I mean, as long as people are watching it, we don't care where they're watching it.
And I think that goes back to your point. I don't know if there ever will be, besides YouTube, and who knows how long we can air hunting content on YouTube, but I don't think there ever will be a key single platform. It's going to be, you're going to have to stride out there and find multiple touch points to make sure that you're reaching as much of the demographic as possible. And that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks a lot.
It's a lot of extra work, and it's dividing analytics, and then you're comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, for the whole industry. I mean, it's way harder than it needs to be. And it's just because we're what's the word? Like a targeted or like a controversial subject. We you know, just like firearms, or
as much as we don't want to say we're divided, like, and again, no knock to them because I know both of them very well. Look at the fact that like I have to be in Realtree to be on Realtree 365, or in Mossy Oak to be on Mossy Oak Go. Like,
is
and
that
I
the
get
case?
Yeah, and I get the purposes of those platforms, but also it's like, well, dude, I just want to watch great content. Like, I don't care. Like, that's great that they're wearing your camo versus someone else, but like, hypothetically, what about all the people that are wearing Sitka or First Light, or that are really good? Like, they can't have their content on your platform because they don't wear your stuff. Like, that's just, you know, and that's where the Outdoor Channel had such a good opportunity with My Outdoor TV, but they went the subscription route, which just destroyed it.
Dude, that's a bummer too, because like that was the closest as in my lifetime that we ever were to like strength and unity as far as this industry. And I disagree with almost everything the Outdoor Channel has done since then. But man, I wish something like that could exist again.
Well, but like somebody like, you know, Brennan's show potentially couldn't have been on there because they didn't have an OSG relationship.
Yeah,
which limits again. You're limiting the content. Like
that's I think maybe not the difference, but like what I'm saying earlier is there are some shows that shouldn't be able to be aired
100%.
on the network. Brennan, I don't think yours is one of them.
We all agree with that.
There should be some barrier of entry, to protect me, the viewer, from just hours wasted of like shitty YouTube content.
So that's where I'm looking at it. And again,
and I'd be willing to pay a subscription, for that service.
Brennan's point, and again, no knock to
Breaking
them.
point?
Yep. Brennan's point, breaking point, no pun intended. I think Carbon screwed that up, right? They were on that track, and then for whatever reason, like in Tommy Boy with the biscuit, they just blew it up. And but nobody else has got. Everybody else has some biased filter where if you come in, and like I've talked to the Outdoor America guys about this, is that if you come in and you say, I just want the best content. I don't care what camo you're wearing. I don't care what network you were or were not on. I just want the best content for our viewer. That's the only way this thing's going to grow past. And I'm not saying you can't be successful, but otherwise you're just in the barrel with everybody else who is some sort of bias filter.
So what options do you have at this point? Like, aside from traditional sportsman, outdoor, pursuit, or wild TV, like a network subscription, what options do you have aside from YouTube, which I know is one of the biggest, Outdoor America, and Waypoint seem to be the three that offer some kind of a digital subscription.
There's a Pursuit Go, but that's just like my outdoor TV.
Well, and I guess if I would say Realtree 365, but these are your biased platforms we're talking about. Is Pursuit also one of those?
I think Pursuit is probably taking on Pursuit shows, would be my guess.
Cool. So just...
Yeah, still bias. So I would assume it's just Waypoint and Outdoor America. Do you know any other, Brennan, that kind of are wide open to just taking
YouTube.
Good quality? Well, YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. Vimeo, I guess, but that's not really a high traffic.
What are you guys on Vimeo just as like publicly available, or are you doing, like, I know we've done some in the past for some clients that are actually like selling episodic content or video series and stuff?
So as far as Vimeo, we don't really push that platform. It's our content's there.
Okay.
We do get views on it. I wouldn't say a ton, but we just put our stuff on there just because we do have people that watch it there.
Sure.
And it's not a huge crowd, but it's a crowd. And like I said, every view counts. And it's just a very clean platform, very clean streaming platform. So we decided to throw it on there as well.
It's really high quality, better than YouTube.
It's a video hosting service. That's why.
But the problem is just for whatever reason, they just don't have the audience.
It's a repository more than anything. How about your IGTV stuff? How's that seem to have been working out?
Again, we get views there, and I think some people, that's kind of their weekly routine is to watch it on IGTV. And it's not a heavy hitter, but it tracks views, and people want to watch it there right on their phone, you know, while they're laying in bed or laying on the couch or whatever. Got to put it there.
Yep. And what are you guys doing? Or do you have a cadence kind of set up? Like, we're a week away from October 1. You guys trying to drop like a piece of content a week, or how's that lay out?
So we started with our regular season stuff. We drop an episode every Wednesday. We started in August. We just dropped our 8th episode. Did we start in July? I can't even remember what our first episode was this year. But either way, yesterday we just dropped our 8th episode. And every Wednesday we'll drop them on YouTube at 7 a.m. And then we'll drop them on Facebook and Instagram and all the other platforms around 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Cool.
And that kind of gives us the chance to push YouTube for the first half of the day. And then everything else kind of comes in the afternoon. And because, like I say, YouTube's the one that we're really trying to grow right now. Just because of the subscriber stuff, there's a lot of retention there.
Yep.
You guys, I don't have to explain to you, but when somebody subscribes to your channel, they're getting dinged every time you post something new. So it just keeps growing, and our traction is finally taking off on YouTube. But that's kind of what we do. And then this year we're incorporating a semi-live show throughout the season. We just put out our 6th one this last Sunday, and we're posting those on Sunday afternoons.
Very cool.
So every Sunday we post a semi live, and that's pretty much whatever happened that week. Whether we kill something or not, we're kind of taking everyone along for the ride as far as how our season's progressing. If we're having luck, if we're getting our ass kicked, we kind of want to show that. And I think a lot of people are enjoying that, just because otherwise our episodes don't come out for 9 months.
Right.
And everyone's always like, well, we want to see the new shows and this and that. And I think semi-live's the answer for that. Our semi-live is not edited. It's not edited in the fashion of our regular shows. It's kind of more cut and dry, rough cuts, no music or any of those fancy edits. It's just real live footage from the field, and kind of just more aligned telling the story, because when our actual season episodes come out, those are, I want to say 300 hours of footage compressed into 15 minutes. And the semi-live's kind of given us the ability to tell more of that story to the audience, what actually happened.
Yeah, I like that a lot, man.
Dude, it's so crazy just like how limited our options have become, or how much it's changed. Like, think like, what can you watch? Like, it's literally like, here's what I can watch like on a weekly basis at this point with no outdoor channel subscription or whatever. I can watch The Breaking Point. I can watch Whitetail Edge. I can watch Midwest Whitetail, and I could watch The Hunting Public.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, like, I'm sure there's other good shows out there. I mean, other guys aren't producing good stuff. And every once in a while, the short film drop, and there are others that some people like that I just aren't really my cup of tea or whatever. But like, dude, compared to, when the outdoor channel was in full swing, where it's like at any night I can sit down and just watch all my shit. I can watch Dream Season, North American Whitetail, bam, 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 right down the list. And I think some of these shows still exist, but like, I just can't access them, and I'm not going to pay for a cable box. Like, I am looking into the Outdoor America stuff now, and I'm starting to come across some channels, but it's still laced with, they're picking up shows and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a big,
as far as the on-demand aspect, like your guys and a handful of others it's not like there's a ton of competition.
And I think for me, and I think the structure that you guys have laid out, Brennen, is really good in that, like, I love seeing a well-produced piece from last year, right? In the same breath, though, I really want to see what just happened.
Sure.
I mean, that's today's lifestyle, is like, so when you have that semi-live piece to accompany that, it's like, cool, man, that was an awesome episode.
Heartland Bowhunter is another one I should throw in there. They do a lot of YouTube stuff.
Yeah, what's happening now? And I think that the groups that have adapted to that, right? The groups that have adapted to putting out a great quality production, a year back, basically, but also providing stuff that's happening now, which Heartland has, Breaking Point has,
it's a nice mix.
That is the mix that's succeeding, right? The ones who are literally only producing, and again, no knock to them, but you think about like Dream Season or anything Drury, that's all old stuff. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't care about it, but it's like, man, but what's happening now?
Yeah. And I think, the content producer has the ability to just make a decision about what they want to do and what they're capable of. Like, there's one that, I look forward to, the Stalker Stick Bows guy.
Yeah, the Stick Bow guy.
South Cox puts out a few films every year from like his previous stuff. And I really enjoy those. And he doesn't do any kind of semi-live. And you can tell that just meshes with his personality. He's like in his 40s, 50s, probably. A little slower pace.
And it's just him.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. In fact, so Brennen, we're going to work on putting out some films next year, just 4 of them, essentially tied to, the 4 main months of the hunting season, September, October, November, and December, with pulling in some surrounding weeks or whatever. And that'll essentially be our primary focus for next year. But at the same time, we're going to complement that with somewhat of a semi-live, just in the same way that you guys are, to say, like, here's... we're more than capable of putting out a weekly 3 to 5 minute, update in addition to those things, and in addition to the podcast. And so there's one other guy I want to throw in there. That's Brian Call is your gritty podcast.
Guy. Yep.
Who probably is the most similar to like
what we're doing.
The podcast is being our our main gig at this point. So we do this, and Brian had a really successful podcast for a long time. I think he still does it. I don't know if as frequently or whatever, but he eventually got into making films as well. They did the gritty films, and they're not necessarily my cup of tea, but he's probably the most similar to what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's the flexibility that we all have as content producers to be like, you can make a film. You can make a semi-live that's 3 to 5 minutes. You can make a 15-minute episode. Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
That's the beauty of no outdoor channel.
100%.
To contrast my other point is you can do whatever you want.
And I love that aspect of it because, I mean, there were certain, like, you know, I don't want to watch a show where the first 15 minutes of it are fluff and drive into the place, and then it's like 4 minutes of an actual hunt, show's over. And it's like, what the hell, man?
Or they just keep making 5-minute teasers over and over and over again.
Yeah. So those are the things that I think, you know, the content producers who are doing it right have figured out. And I assume, Brennen, this is kind of how you guys evolved, is that you kind of find what your audience is looking for. And then it's like, cool, if we make this, the audience will eat it up.
For sure. And that was one of the big draws to going digital is when we were on TV, there's so many guidelines and restrictions, and you can't shoot a deer out of its bed, and you can't show skinning a deer. You can't drink beer, like shit like that.
Wow.
That's just
that's
not
un-American.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was Pursuit. Like, I didn't think Pursuit had any standards.
I want to be drinking a beer, skinning a deer, and shoot one out of the bed at the same time. Like, I mean, and I can't do any of that.
Be laying in his bed with a bush light.
Like the first year that we were on Pursuit, I know we were mule deer hunting out west, and mule deer hunting, the goal is pretty much to shoot a mule deer while it's bedded in its bed.
Yeah,
and we're stalking in on these deer, and like, what the fuck? What do? Like, you got to get this thing to stand up, or we can't show it on TV. And it's kind of stupid that
start throwing rocks at it. Yeah, I'd be putting one right in the pipes.
Yeah, no, that's a Lieutenant Dan deer. He was standing up.
Yeah, I mean, that's half the challenge is getting into bow range while they're in their bed. So
exactly,
if you can get there, shoot the damn thing. You shouldn't get docked for it.
That's crazy.
But with the digital stuff, like anyone that follows our show, like, if we had to follow guidelines like that, it gets to the point where you're not yourself anymore. You can't show your true personality. We like to have a good time. We like to drink beer, and I mean, I think that's what our audience kind of clings to, and they can relate to. Like, these guys have like a deer camp, just like I'm used to.
Yeah,
like hanging out with your buddies, having a good time, hunting deer, drinking beer. Bullshitting. Like, that's what we try to show. We just, try to be ourselves. And if someone puts guidelines on that, we wouldn't be ourselves anymore.
Well, and that's where the YouTube thing's coming in. Like, okay, you're okay if it literally says it in the guidelines. You're okay if I do traditional hunting methods and preparation of wild game for cooking. Yet the moment that I want to monetize that, which let's not forget that it's not just about making money on YouTube. I mean, shit, dude, if we monetized our channel, we make what, $20 a month, It's more so from an algorithm basis that if you're monetizing your videos, Google's probably going to push them more because they can make money off of your video, right? Versus if you're not monetizing it. But now I can't monetize it if I show a kill shot, which literally is the purpose of hunting, is to make an ethical kill shot.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's blatant censorship. It's just because they can.
And if I wanted to show how to process a deer video, I mean, it's basically saying I can't monetize that because it would be offensive.
Was that Newberg, you said, just picked up a sportsman?
Which is like the TV Antichrist.
Yeah.
Like, he hates.
Is he? Well, he was on a network for a long time, right?
And he left because he was just so frustrated with network restrictions and stuff, things that he can and can't do. So he went digital, and now it sounds like he's potentially having to go back, or at least entertaining it.
I like that guy.
Newberg?
He is entertaining.
Yeah. And it's just, again, like, the problem is, I get why you're going back. I don't think manufacturers are going to give a shit. They're not going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I understand that you can't put this on YouTube. I'll pay you $50,000 this year since you're on TV. Hell no. They're not going to do that shit. They don't care. In fact, they don't care if you monetize your videos on YouTube. They'd rather you just do what you were paid to do with, providing them content and good video inclusion. The fact that you can't make money on YouTube's not their problem.
Sure.
So that, and I think that's the situation that some of these guys who are dependent on YouTube revenue are going to fall into, who also have sponsorships, because they're going to say, hey, listen, we can't do this, this, and this. Like if I'm a Broadhead company and I'm sponsoring somebody who's very dependent on YouTube revenue, and you say, hey, listen, we can't show this, this, and this on our videos anymore because YouTube won't allow it, it's not my problem. Like, dude, I'm paying you to make this stuff. Just don't monetize it.
Speaking of broadheads, I want to talk to you about them schwackers here at some point.
So
I'm ready whenever.
That's it. I mean, what are you going to do? You know, you either have to not monetize your video and keep your Broadhead sponsor happy, or you have to monetize the video and piss off your Broadhead sponsor.
Yeah. You know, I'm not necessarily like totally opposed to omitting some of that footage, but it just, I mean, dude, it's the same. It's censorship, and like it just feels like freedom being stepped on to say that we can't.
For sure.
I would rather make the decision to say like, hey, I'd like for our content to be presented in this way, but the fact that it's freaking the same thing as having to get this vaccine. Like for Joe Biden to tell me I have to get this vaccine, or YouTube to tell me that I can't, you know, show this thing that is the reality. It's the same thing. It's just oppression.
Yes.
So these schwackers, I know they're your sponsor, so you have to say that you like them. But let me just
go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna. But I'm trying to figure out where to start. So my issue with these broadheads, and I have shot these things before.
It's been a while, right? 4 or 5 years since you shot them.
2 or 3.
Has it?
Yeah, I think 2 or 3.
Okay.
My issue with those broadheads is that they don't open until they're inside of the animal. Is the idea. And so their selling point is that those are fresh blades cutting organs, essentially, which I'm all for. The two problems that I see there is, first of all, there's no entry wound unless I get the ones with the dragger blades, or whatever they're called, running blades.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the little 1/4-inch deals, which does help, and those are the ones that I shot.
The bleeders.
And because they're such a big, you know, cutting surface diameter broadhead, which I do like that aspect, if I don't get an exit wound, I get no blood. And so I had
what head are you shooting, or what head did you shoot?
I shot the original one to start with, and I shot it already kind of being aware of that issue. I was like, dude, if I don't get an exit wound, like there's going to be no blood. That happened once or twice, and so I switched to the ones with the running blades on them, on the sides. And I think that they actually came out with that one because they were aware of that issue, would be my guess. And it still wasn't enough to keep me from, ultimately I switched to just Rage Tripans is what I shoot now. Mainly because it's a rear deploying broadhead and I can get an entry wound. It's just as big of a cutting diameter. So I run the same risk of not getting an exit wound potentially, but at least I have an entry wound.
Yeah. So you started out shooting the green, we call them the green machines, the 207s. They're the over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you went to, did you go to the Levi Morgan series, like the blue head, or did you go to a fixed blade?
The ones I shot were black. Yeah, it was fixed. It had a fixed on 2 sides.
Oh, okay. You shot the hybrid then.
Yeah, the hybrid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the hybrid. Most of our crew shoots the green machines, the 207s.
Mm-hmm.
We've had really good luck with them, man. I mean, the entry hole's, you know, not as big as the exit hole is, but a lot of the time, like those deer that we're shooting with those, they're usually going down within, you know, 75 to 100 yards if you hit them well.
Yeah.
And typically if you hit them back, liver, guts, you're getting a pass through. So you're getting an exit. The only time you're not getting an exit on those heads is if you shoulder shoot them or hit the off shoulder. And most of the time you shoulder shoot a deer or any animal with any head, it ain't a good deal, especially, you know, if you hit up in the upper shoulder and hit that big paddle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, anything behind the shoulder, you're getting an exit wound with those heads, and they're just, I mean, they're devastating. We've been shooting them for, I don't know, 5 years or better now, 5-6 years. And I was like the biggest fixed blade fanatic, like before we started working with Schwacker, and all I would shoot were fixed heads.
Yep.
And I had a hard time like wrapping my head around switching.
Mm-hmm.
But after I've shot a few deer with these schwackers, like these things fly amazing. Like I practice with them out to 80, 90 yards. And I mean, they're shooting at 80, 90 yards. They're shooting like my field points. And that's a huge confidence thing. I feel like a lot of people throw a broadhead on their arrows and they don't even practice with them.
100%.
And they have no idea. They have no idea what that arrow is going to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, that just thinking about that kind of scares the shit out of me that people actually go to the woods with that concept. Like, hey, I've been shooting all summer with my field points, got this new pack of broadheads that doesn't have a practice tip. And I'm just going to screw them in, throw them in my quiver and go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a nice thing about schwackers. They make those practice heads and you can shoot them and know exactly what your heads are going to do. And, to say that you have a head that flies true to your field points is huge when it comes to confidence in the field, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if you're sacrificing, whether it's a 3/8 of an inch or a half inch on an entry hole for a head that flies amazing, I'm going to take that every day.
I think that's the big advantage because I was always a fixed blade guy. Like I shot ram cats for a long time. I love those. They were the truest flying fixed blade that I had ever shot.
I was gonna say everybody your age was at one time a fixed blade.
A fixed blade guy.
They started making mechanicals so a couple of years ago.
They were making them. Yeah, we were pull the muzzies off the shelf and screw them in. But I mean, and again, back then when you were shooting slower bows, right? Like they would still plane, but not nearly like. I mean, you put no knock to them, but if you put a muzzy 3-blade or 4-blade on like our Hoyts, and you fire that thing planes like a son of a bitch because there's so much speed coming out of that thing. Yeah, and I mean that's the advantage to me. Again, I love whether you talk about Schwacker, Rage, NAP, whoever. Like I love the expandables now. I'm sold on them. From a tracking standpoint, from a hit standpoint. Like but it's the way that those things fly compared to most fixed blades, especially when you're blowing 300 feet per second out of a bow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've shot a fixed blade. I understand why people shoot them. I think one of the major like determinants for like where broadheads are going and stuff is people figuring out arrow weight, and putting weighting the front of their arrows essentially. And so like I build my bow setup and my arrow setup is built for penetration. Meaning weighted heavy. I'm shooting 80 pounds out of my bow. You
can kill wildebeest with that thing.
And the broadhead that I'm choosing is like primarily based on the blood trail that I'm going to get from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've lost too many deer that I know are dead just because I had no blood. And so but basically I'm shooting like a Victory VAP 250 spine, 80-pound bow. Got an FX Archery outsert at the front of it. My total setup weighs like 470 grains. And I'm still shooting like 300 feet per second out of that 80-pound bow. And then I've just got a Rage tri-pan at the end of it because it's durable. I get an entry wound, big cutting surface. And it's, for me, I mean, that's been the solution that worked. I could easily throw on a Schwacker and get a similar result. It's that entry wound that's kind of made that decision for me.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably why they have those bleeders on there now.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
That's been their step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that when you start to look at kind of the evolution of all those setups, I mean, we all probably are in agreement just because we are shooting them right now. I think Victory makes a fantastic arrow. Mm-hmm. Whether you talk about the VAPs or the RIP TKOs, which is what I'm shooting, like I think those arrows are awesome.
Well, to be honest, I chose that arrow because it fit the Victory outsert that I wanted. Yeah. I'm sorry, the FX
outsert.
Yeah, they make a really nice, I don't know if it's an insert to outsert hybrid. It's basically a male, shaft that goes down inside of the arrow, and it has like a...
You're talking about ethics.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep messing that up. Ethics, and it has like a sleeve that covers that outsert and also, a half inch of the arrow.
Because you have a bunch of weight. Like I think
it's freaking indestructible.
The ones that I have,
you could just shoot whatever. You could shoot a steel wall and just go pick your arrow up and keep shooting it.
Mine are like 55 or 60 grains that are from Victory.
Yeah.
Just that small outsert. No, I'm shooting the actual Victory ones that go into my VAT or my RIP TKOs.
Yep.
But I mean, we didn't even lean on that until 4 years ago, when we started thinking about all that, forward balance and momentum. And
yeah,
it used to be just speed. You'd be like, oh, cool, that arrow's whatever, 6.8 grams per inch. Just shoot it.
There's been like a big shift in that stuff over the past couple. I think it started with the Easton full metal jacket.
It did.
Was people started saying like, oh, I can shoot like a heavy arrow and I can get better penetration. The reality is like, why would you build an arrow with a really heavy shaft all the way? That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Victory took that opportunity to start, and they've got some extreme versions of like the Grizzly stick.
Sure.
And,
but it's all forward weight, right?
Yeah, basically, all you need to figure out is how to get a stiff enough arrow to support a little additional weight on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then your overall weight and speed matters. And if you can find a sweet spot, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. And flight is also better. You shoot longer distances because you have a more stable flight.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so there are these extremists. So there's guys that will like swear up and down by a full Grizzly stick setup and a 2-blade beveled broadhead.
That's what the hunting public guys
to them,
are doing, right?
Penetration is all that matters. And I can understand why someone might think that, but I disagree for sure, especially on a whitetail, because there's no way I'm not getting penetration, to say the least, if not a full pass through most of the times with that arrow set up, regardless of what's on the end of it. I could shoot it with what do you call those things? Like a techno hunt tip. I could probably get a pass through on a whitetail.
Yeah. But where Brennan's at in Wisconsin or here in Pennsylvania, the amount of pressure that these deer get, they react to that shot. They're going to move. And so that's where I don't want to give up so much speed, where these guys are throwing huge heavy arrows and reducing its speed. I still want speed at 30 and 40 yards. So when that deer drops, I'm not shooting over its back.
There is an argument around that I don't fully comprehend, but there are some guys that will say if you are shooting a heavy enough arrow, the sound is eliminated. And so they're like, you could be shooting 250 feet per second, and if that arrow is heavy enough, there is no sound, which makes no sense to me. But
maybe
I know who we could talk to about that. We'll get Haas from Ethics on it. He could talk about that.
That's crazy. I guess, Brennan, when you guys start to talk about your season and stuff, are you, and I know you guys do turkey and Western stuff too. Are you guys primarily bow guys, or do you have some guys that are doing gun hunts as well?
I would say we are 90% archery. I get the muzzleloader out every year for Iowa.
Yep.
Mike will do the same now that he lives down here. And then, we might have another gun hunt or two. Like last year we had, Chad and Dan both went out to Colorado with rifle tags to hunt elk and shot a couple bulls out there. But, it's primarily archery, and sprinkling a little gun hunting now and then.
Very cool. Yeah, and so we were just talking before we got on the podcast. October 1st is Iowa's opener. Wisconsin's open now, right?
Yep. Open last weekend.
So yeah, it's crazy to think that we're in it at this point.
Were you in the Dakotas a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. So I kicked off the year. Mike had a tag in Minnesota to hunt bears, which started September 1.
That's right.
So we started there. He shot a bear on the third day of the season. And then I actually came back to spend some time with my family because I would have been odd man out in North Dakota, but we had a group of guys up in North Dakota for the opener, which was on the 3rd or 4th.
For muleys or whitetails?
Whitetails this year. Nobody, years past, we've had a guy, usually at least one guy will put in for the any deer tag up there so we can hunt muleys.
Yep.
But everyone just got whitetail tags this year. So we have a couple different areas that we hunt in North Dakota for whitetails, spread out over a couple miles, or not a couple miles, but a couple hours from each other. We have where our camp is that we've hunted for several years. And then a couple of the other guys hunt a couple hours from there. And that's kind of been our go-to as far as kicking the year off. Usually we start the season in North Dakota, and if we have tags left, we'll end the season in North Dakota. But just like going up there because you get that early start and get a chance at chasing velvet deer. But yeah, I just got back actually 2 days ago. I was up there for a pretty good stretch. We've knocked down four whitetails now so far in North Dakota, but we still have tags left. So we'll be putting in more time, either heading back up there on Sunday or going to Nebraska. Haven't made a decision yet. Might go try chasing whitetails in Nebraska for a week or so and then head back up there. Not really sure yet.
Very cool, man. Yeah, we spent a couple days in South Dakota and then about 5 days in North Dakota, and that was a 25-hour drive for us, so we're not making it back. But we gave them hell for 5 days, and damn, it was dry out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were talking to farmers, and they said it's the driest year they've had since the early 80s. And the one farmer said that since the snow melted, they've had 3 inches of rain.
Yep,
like
sounds
that's
about
it.
right.
Like it's all the cattail marshes were like pretty much dust boxes. It was crazy. It was definitely, I was really concerned actually when we made our summer trip and seeing how dry it was. I was really concerned about EHD, and lucky for us, I don't think it hit where we're at, but I know areas and zones further to the west were starting to find deer.
Yeah, where we were at, it sounded like they're, at least in South Dakota and potentially in North Dakota, that they were starting to see it happen, or at least had heard that it was happening. We didn't find any dead deer. Then again, we found very little water too.
Yeah, I mean, it was, not to belittle like what was happening in the eastern part of the state, but we drove clear across it, and the eastern part looked, dry, but not too terrible. Until we got to the far western part of the state. I mean, dude, it was
desolate,
completely gone. Like areas that we had seen 50, 100 deer in a field like every night, just because it's loaded with alfalfa. I mean, burnt to a crisp, but like almost dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took us a long time to even find deer because they had left. They up and left, and
they increased the cattle ranges because the cattle just kept eating everything, so they would keep increasing the range of allowing them into the Badlands and here and there, and all it did is just push all those muleys out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we did find deer, and they were just in like borderline unstockable country. I mean, we tried anyways. Yeah, we stocked a lot of muleys and stuff, but I mean, they couldn't be gotten to. But
even like in years past, we had seen some giant whitetails in some of the river bottoms with the alfalfa non-existent. Like not a deer in these fields.
It was a weird year, man. It was tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, huh? Yep. We did get permission on. So the deal in South Dakota is that, like, I think it was 2 years ago, they stopped allowing non-residents to come in and hunt with an archery tag on public land
until October
1st.
October 1. Yep.
Yeah. So we're like, well, F that. We're looking for velvet bucks. So we went out and we met a lot of landowners on this trip, just in hopes of getting permission for next year. And we ended up on the way home actually getting permission on a really nice, a big ranch. And just kind of just talk to the guy, and send him a bottle of bourbon. And like, he's like, I run a pretty tight deal here. He's like, I don't really want anybody hunting, but I mean, it seems like a spot. So we're going to go back and try that exclusively, I think, for the early season next year, and just get our point in North Dakota so we can be guaranteed to go back for muleys the following year.
Hopefully they get some rain. I just looked in the forecast.
Give them a year to recoup.
They're not getting shit. It is just dry since we left.
That's so crazy, man. With as much rain as we've gotten out here, it's like
just keeps missing them, I guess.
Just not getting it.
Yeah. I feel bad for those guys, for the farmers, and I mean, it sounds like everybody's kind of struggling out there after COVID as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, man. So you've got you're going to be traveling through Nebraska, and you got Dakotas. You've obviously got Wisconsin and Iowa. Do you guys come east at all?
Furthest east that we're going to be this year is Illinois.
Yeah.
We picked up a lease in Illinois. A couple guys are going to be hunting that. Other than that, I drew a tag down in Kansas, so I'll
there you go.
Spend some time in Kansas. I'm going to just hunt public land down there. Totally new area. One of our crew members has hunted public down there in the past. He kind of dropped me some pins, and give that a go. I don't foresee myself being down there until mid-November probably. But my hope is to give it a good go, pretty much like November 15th through the end of the month.
That's usually
until
when
their gun
there.
season comes in.
What part of the state are you going to be in?
Northern part of the state.
We're usually in the southeast part, and we try to hit that third week in November is usually our go-to. And we hunt a lot of public down there. And I mean,
as long as you can avoid like a hot spell,
that's it.
It seems to shut them right down.
Yeah. If the weather's good, you're in them. If the weather's hot, you're not.
Yep, for sure. We can relate to that. Kansas has been kind of hit and miss for us. We've hunted Northwest, we've hunted Southeast, we've kind of jumped around, and you got to have that weather. I mean, it doesn't matter what the dates are on the calendar down there. It doesn't seem like, but if you get cold weather anytime in November, it's just freaking hold on to your seats because shit hits a fan.
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago. One of the years you didn't draw. It like snowed. Really it was like 20 degrees. And dude, I was seeing 14, 15 bucks a day, and then last year was fucking 80 degrees.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Had to be in a t-shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's and you kind of get that anywhere. I mean, there's certain places that you got to be in the right dates. Like Wisconsin is one, Pennsylvania is one, because like if you don't hunt like this period, then gun season starts and all hell breaks loose, right? But like in other places, Iowa, Kansas, even Missouri's like that too. You got to hit that. It seems like it's just getting good that last couple of days of bow season, and then boom, gun season hits, and it just goes to shit. So it's just. Some places you can play the calendar pretty much spot on. Other places, play the weather. And if you have the flexibility to do both, then you can kind of build yourself a pretty strong schedule.
What part of Illinois are you guys going to be in?
It'd be West Central.
Gotcha. That's like
I don't even know what county that is. If you said it, I would probably recognize it. I'm not personally hunting down there. I've been down to the lease. It's just kind of something we worked out. A friend through a friend knew somebody, and we scooped up some ground, and a couple other guys that have a little more flexible schedules, and have a drive that makes more sense than what my drive would be, are going to be hunting that. So it seems like a really nice piece. I know those guys have a couple really good bucks on camera this summer. So hopefully it pans out. It looks pretty good though.
Awesome. We'll be out there the second week of November, all the way down southern tip.
Yeah.
Like
just across the border from Missouri.
Yeah, like stone's throw from the river there, and that'll be our first time out there too. And that's actually because we didn't draw in Kansas this year, so we're like, well, let's just figure out another rut trip basically, and we're just hunting public down there. We've got 2 small leases. Basically like a stand on each and then public from there.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, should be good. I mean, we shed hunted out there and just scouted around. And shed season was really weird this past year. We shed hunted quite a bit, and even though we were, I guess, later doing it, I felt like we were early. We were finding sheds, but they were
we saw
a year plus old.
Yeah, well, and we saw deer with full racks on their heads like at the end of March. It's like March 26th.
We were in Kansas.
Yeah,
we were in Kansas, like walking through like our honey hole of like we just walk around and pick up sheds, and it's like, oh, there goes all the sheds on their head still.
Shed hunting's weird, man. It's you got to get lucky first of all, but you also have to be where there's food.
Yeah, it was really weird this year, but like I said, we were finding sheds that were just a year or two old.
Yeah,
which tells me that we were in the right area. They just didn't drop yet. So, it'll be interesting. I know acorns are starting to fall, at least here, I assume in Illinois and some of these other places. So, I mean, that's going to start, crops are going to start coming off and patterns are going to start changing. And, we're in the heat of it. It's crazy, man. You blink and it's November 1 and it's like, where the hell did October go?
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I'm starting to feel like
this podcast could end up being 3 hours if you guys start talking sheds with me.
Oh, dude, we've been we got a pile of them here on the table.
Dude, I'm supposed to be getting one back from
Klaus
Antlers by Klaus. Yeah, I missed just a big 8-point a couple years ago, and we found a shed this past year, and I sent it into Klaus to have it cleaned up. It was chewed up a little bit by some.
So that was the one we found, the Spider-Man one, and that's a public Kansas shed, and then the one that you're getting fixed is a public Kansas shed.
Yeah.
and then so are these chewed up monster or public Kansas sheds.
That's got to be the biggest. I mean,
had it not been chewed up.
Yeah, that's a giant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of, I mean, that's the beauty of Kansas, even over some of these other places, is that, like, I'm not saying that it's better than private land, but I mean, some of these big public tracts, I mean, they hold giants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, walk-in hunting or Army Corps land or whatever. Like, there's giants in there.
How do you feel, Brian, about the public in Iowa? I mean, does it seem like there's opportunity there for non-resident? Like, I know guys are, us included, putting in for 4, 5, 6 years to,
Points.
you know, is coming out to hunt in public. Seem like it's worth it, or?
Without a doubt, Iowa public's awesome. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in the state of Iowa. The hardest thing is to get that tag. You know, in those northern zones, it's easy. You know, you can get a tag without waiting as long as the southern zones, but throughout the state, there are a ton of public land opportunities. And just from like public in Iowa to public in other states, it's a whole different ball game. I would, having grown up hunting in Wisconsin, I would hands down hunt Iowa public over I would hunt, 300 or 400 acres of private land in Wisconsin. Like, it's that good. Like, Iowa, just how they structure their deer season and everything around it is set up to grow big deer. And, you know, the main thing there is getting deer to that age where they can be big, 5, 6 years old. And Iowa's doing all the things right for that to happen. So yeah, I would not hesitate to hunt public land in Iowa. It's awesome.
Yeah. Do you have some farms down there then, or did you buy any ground when you moved down, or what is your plan?
I got lucky. I met people through people and door knocking, and I've got a handful of private parcels that I hunt. But at the same time, there's a lot of public opportunities that, like last year, Mike drew a tag down there, and he'd hunted with me in the past 4 years ago, and we hunted private. But then last year, he wanted to take on the challenge of hunting public. And I mean, he was hunting in the same time frame I was. And I mean, he was seeing just as good a deer as I was, like on a daily basis. Like, they're there, no doubt about it.
And that's kind of not necessarily my fear, and I guess not really even my hope, but at some point Kansas has to adapt to that, right? Because we saw it this year. I mean, just in our area, I think there were 1,000 more applications. It was like a 50% increase in applications than the previous year. And so at some point, and they have the preference point kind of scale put in place, but, you know, it's got to adapt to where if we want to keep high quality deer in Kansas, we're going to have to start having at least 1, if not 2 points to hunt there, right, as a non-resident. Because otherwise, you know, and we're seeing it in some of our places, like, no knock to them, but like we've got a Minnesota contingency of 15 guys that hunt in our area every time we're down there. And I guarantee the first 3-year-old they see, they're whacking. You know, which is fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but if you want to see,
I feel like the residents are more of an issue, personally.
I don't know. I mean, those residents are only gun hunting. There's like very few.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I think they're just murdering 2 and 3-year-olds.
Yeah. I if they are, it's changed a lot. Because at one point in time, you know, if you didn't kill a 160 or 170, like, nobody even talked about it. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah, among the deer hunting community, but there's a lot of just like drink beer and shoot them out of the back of the truck,
probably,
type of parties.
Yeah, something has changed a lot in the last 3 to 4 years.
Certainly, there's more pressure from non-residents. That's definitely a factor.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. And crossbows, because I think you can use a crossbow there if you want.
Yeah, gotta be.
So that's probably a big factor. Yeah, and it's that's where I think, you know, you keep going back to, you know, people will talk about it forever, but Iowa's kind of the spot in that, you know, you still got a strong resident hunting population and a strong resident gun season and muzzleloader opportunities. But, you know, ultimately, because they keep non-residents at bay, you know, and most of the good places you got to have 4 or 5 points, 4 or 5 years till you can get drawn. Like, I think it'll continue to have that good quality age structure for quite a while. Where Kansas is in jeopardy of it. Frankly, Missouri could be like that. We talked about that not too long ago. I think Missouri could be a giant state had they not just make it over the counter and rifle season during the rut, and, you know, the list goes on. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are just shit out of luck. People just murder everything. knock the spots off of them.
Too many hunters.
And it's just kicking the spots off of them when they see them. Yeah, it's just. Although, I mean, I will say both states are known for producing big bucks every once in a while. Like, it's not consistent. It's not like you're going to go out and see 4- or 5-year-olds all the time. But both states, whether you're in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, or frankly where we're at, I mean, people are killing big bucks. They're seeing them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's not like a complicated equation to like make a big buck. It just needs, I don't know.
Doesn't even need
What's it going to be?
It just needs age.
20% maybe of deer genetically have the ability to get over 150, 160.
Probably.
And they just need 5 years of age.
They just need age.
That's all it takes.
That is the only thing it takes. Like, I'm not worried about food in these areas. Hell, I'm not even worried about genes in these areas. You just get a buck to 5 years of age, and there's a good chance he's going to be big in retrospect to the people hunting that area.
Yeah.
But it's hard. And especially because guys who think they're seeing 150-inch deer are seeing 130-inch 3-year-olds, and they're whacking
that's
away.
Absolutely the case.
And they've just never seen a 150, and they probably never will because they're shooting them all at 3. And that's, no knock to them, but if you want to see one, can't kill every 3-year-old you see. And that's a tough pill to swallow in states that traditionally we were killing 1-horn 3-inch spikes or 2.5-inch and shaving them down to make sure they were 3.
Mm-hmm. Get the grinder out.
Yeah, like that's just how these guys have grown up, and they don't like change over that. And I can't blame them, but like it goes back to those hunter number type of things that we talked about, especially these two states where traditionally have been, a million plus type states, and we're in the 700s now, and here in Pennsylvania, I'm not sure where Wisconsin's at, but there are less hunters than there have been, especially in the 90s. And whether it's restrictions or better management, like there are bigger bucks in these states, and I think that they'll continue to be bigger bucks in these states. In fact, I think they'll get more frequent, as kind of the management mindsets come in, or, frankly, people just don't hunt as much anymore. And, it's an aging population. And that's a tough thing to swallow because, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, nobody wants to be the guy that says, I want less hunters, right? But ultimately, a lot of us are thinking it. If I've got less guys here, my chances of killing a bigger deer are higher.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
That's the reality.
Yeah, and it's just, and again, and I get it. Like, I'll be the first to say, like, I'd pay more for a license if there were less hunters, if that's how the money needed to be made up. Federally, it doesn't work that way, but state-wise, it would.
Sure.
So it's just, it's a tough situation that we all kind of fall into is, yeah, we're losing hunter numbers, and that's not good. It is, in turn, making deer hunting better in some states because there are less people.
Mm-hmm. It's complex.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, again, nobody wants to be that guy saying that, but, if there's nobody hunting in your area, you're going to have bigger deer, older deer.
I can't believe you said that.
Unless the Amish are there, then you're screwed.
Oh, dude, that trail camera picture Weston sent me yesterday was hilarious.
I was dying.
It's it's not his. It's just a trail camera picture of like an Amish buggy coming up over the field.
Basically, every deer that Jared ever wants to protect in Ohio gets killed by the Amish.
Yeah.
Do you guys follow, what the hell is his name? Clifford Martin?
Yoder?
That name came up yesterday. Maybe it was Weston who said that.
He posted this. It's probably the same picture you guys are referring to.
Yep,
yeah, there it is.
That's it. Who is he? Clifford Martin.
Yeah. Clifford Martin. He owns Radix.
Oh yeah.
Trail cameras.
Yep.
Stick and pick. But yeah, he posted that.
That's so funny,
yesterday.
dude. It is.
I guess I don't know if someone sent that to him or if he had it on one of his farms.
Oh.
But yeah, that was pretty funny.
That's just a classic, man. Those guys kill some deer.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Hammer them.
There's enough of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dude, that's how. I don't know what I'm talking about, but like, it seems like there's a bunch of them. They get together, and that's how they can afford these properties.
Well, Strauss just lost like a key piece of property, which was what, only 40 acres?
Yeah, to not one, but probably 12 Amishmen.
But they paid like what, $300K cash
right.
for 40 acres? Are you
That's
kidding me?
That's what I'm saying is I'm pretty sure they pull together and they can afford it easily, and then they all live there. Like they build a community. And because they're perfectly fine, all living and hunting.
I still don't understand, and maybe it's just because I'm naive. Like, I don't care if you pull 12 people together. Like, $300K in cash is a lot of money.
Yeah, but divided by 12.
Yeah, but what do they sell? Butter,
furniture,
woodworking stuff.
They built. They're great. They're
I mean, they built my cabin in Kentucky.
Amazing craftsmen.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, the Amish do a lot of amazing stuff. Like, I don't mean to put them down at all.
I assume Uncle Joe's not taxing them.
I assume there was some kind of tax break. Did we look this up? Can Amish hunt deer any time of year? I don't think they can. I think we did talk about this. They still have to abide by season limits. I don't know if they actually give a shit, but sure, but by law, they're supposed to.
By law, they're supposed to do the same stuff we do. Yeah, fortunately, they can't see these digital regulations anymore.
Yeah, I'd like to look into the religious obligation against using trail cameras.
You're gonna create like an Amish investigation bureau.
That's what I don't. Yeah, the AMB. I don't understand how they can like use trail camera. Like, dude, they're getting drivers to drive them to their properties, and then they're using like crossbows. Like, pretty sure one of those guys has like a Garmin scope. Like, I don't know how that's possible.
He's like, listen, we sure as hell can't use this phone, but he pulls up. He's like got the Garmin.
I guess
they
can text pictures. Like, I know my dad is texting one of our neighbors.
I think it's the line of Amish and Mennonite, and I'm sure there's other communities. Because like I know when I used to do private consulting, I worked with a few of them in Missouri. And they were allowed, if I bought the cameras and I placed the cameras, then they were allowed to check the cameras.
Clearly, makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Speaking of which, those cameras are still out there. I didn't get them back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's obviously evolved from like at one point in time, like in the 90s, like dude, they were like isolated. You saw them go out and just shoot a bunch of shit, but like the technology thing was not. I think it's evolved a lot more since then.
I also think, again, I know nothing about this, but it seems like a spirit of conservation is not really prevalent amongst the Amish community. It's more of a just use the resources at your disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
do you think that's because of like crop damage and stuff? When you're talking about like deer, like they just want to kill as many deer as they can, so their crops.
No, I just don't know that there is a. I don't know if it's an understanding or if there's just any importance given to conservation in general.
Gotcha.
You know, whether that be
soil conservation,
anything,
wildlife conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
I think it's just use the resource.
Mm-hmm.
Use the resource.
And then we'll go buy another one.
Because America was that way until, like, I don't know, freaking Teddy Roosevelt was probably one of the original introducers of, like, a spirit of conservation to say, like, if we continue killing wildlife at this rate, like, it'll be gone.
Sure.
By now, you know, and so I think he and some other organizations and stuff are probably to be credited for that spirit of conservation that I think we kind of all share.
So we need to introduce Teddy's theories to the Amish.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah.
They'll just use the resources and then go buy Strauss's hunting property.
Yeah.
And then use that up and then go buy another one.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I mean, all you can do is try to avoid it or beat it, or I don't know.
It comes back to that expectation of, like, you know, you can't kill big buck if he's not there, or, you know, listen, if you've got Amish on one side or you got neighbors that'll shoot anything that walks, like, odds of you growing 5-year-old bucks are just not good.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, dude, a lot of Amish people that I have met are good people. Like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about their character. Just literally their mentality as it pertains to deer hunting, which in the grand scheme of things is so small. But I do think that they're open at least to, like, collaborating as neighbors to say, oh.
And that's so different though when I was in Mississippi. Like, a lot of those Amish and or Mennonites, they were bringing in 160, 170 inch bucks, and they sure as shit weren't killing anything small and young. Like, they were killing all big bucks.
That also exists too. I think there are some, you know, that have had better hunting opportunities. They're probably like, oh, you know,
yeah,
that's what I want to shoot. You know, they're people too. I guess.
I don't know. Is what it is. Just like farmers versus cattle farmers. Like crop farmers just want to kill all the deer so they don't eat up their crops. Cattle farmers really don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man.
To each his own.
To each his own. Well, Brennen, we appreciate you coming on this morning, man. We didn't want to eat up your whole morning, but I guess kind of before we go, you know, we talk about some of the platforms. How many episodes do you guys think you're going to be putting out, I guess, separated from non-semi-live type stuff? So your planned episodes this fall?
Well, from last year, we've got 16. We've already released 8 of them, and we've got 8 more coming. So there's 16 total from season 8. This year, the sky's the limit. I mean, we're hoping to push 20. Hopefully,
Very cool.
It's hunting. You never know what's going to happen. But that's kind of our goal this year, is to hit 20. We've never done it before, and we're going to need to have a good season to do it. But that's the goal, 20.
Very cool, man. And so we'll send people to your YouTube channel. They can check out, obviously, your Instagram or Facebook, you know, to really find all this stuff out and be able to follow the breaking point. And I would even encourage them to go back, if they haven't looked at your stuff, to watch some of the past seasons. I think there's some really good content there from years past that, you know, is good stuff to sit there and binge on for a while. And we'll have to pull you guys back in maybe after the season's over, or if we have an ATA show, I'm sure you guys will be at the ATA show.
Yeah. If there's a show, we'll definitely be there.
So if there's a show, we're gonna actually have a live podcast booth set up down there. So it'd be cool maybe to pull a bunch of you guys in from Breaking Point, kind of talk about your season and recap, and you know what the plans are moving forward into 22.
For sure. Yeah, just keep us posted. We'd be glad to hop on a podcast down at the show, and hopefully you guys knock some deer down this fall, and
we're gonna try.
At some point somewhere.
We're gonna give them hell, man. They you know,
I got one on a semi pattern here for opener
weekend
in Ohio. Yeah. We'll see.
I'll be in Columbus, which who knows what can happen there for a couple of days. So we'll give them hell, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Brennen, and hopefully everybody will go over and check out the Breaking Point on YouTube and social media, and check out the videos from this year and years past. And we look forward to you guys putting some deer down and releasing some new content this year.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks again.
Thanks, Brennen.
Thanks, buddy.
You bet. We'll see you guys later.
See you, man. Yeah, I think that's really what kind of the interesting thing will be with those guys, and a lot of them is, it sounds like Brennan's already formed this business strategy really well and hasn't invested too much into YouTube yet, you know, which is probably going to be a saving grace with what it sounds like over the next few months. You know, so I think those guys will be fine. How these other guys function, I don't know. I mean, you lose 30 days of revenue. For all I know, for some of these guys, that's 40 or 50 grand. You know, and that's, how do you pay your bills? How do you pay your people working with you? And it's a big disruption to this industry, but I hope that it opens up opportunities for someone, again, whether it's an Outdoor America or whoever, to realize, like, if you take care of these guys and you're loyal to them and you can help pay them and make sure they're making money, you have an opportunity to be different than anything else that's out there right now. And you'll draw in the right content. And again, who's going to be the one that says, I don't care what you wear, who you are, where you've been, you make great content, I want you on my channel? Because it doesn't sound like anybody's done that yet.
I don't know, man. It's very confusing.
I mean, in all honesty, we're still going to watch YouTube. Even if they can't monetize it, that's not my problem. And I don't really look to say, oh, that is monetized, like I should watch it.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, people could say, like, oh, I'll boycott YouTube and stuff. It's like,
dude, we've been there already.
Yeah, convenience is going to win every single time.
We've boycotted Facebook and Instagram, and it's just, it's not going to change. And it's not that I don't like what big tech's doing. It's just, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You know, Parlor?
Yeah. Does that exist still?
I don't think so. Maybe. Somebody's probably going to get real angry that it, but seriously.
Putting up great numbers.
It's huge.
Best we've ever seen.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, you're just not going to, It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. I think that your point on convenience is huge. People just want to go to a place that if I want to watch sports or if I want to learn how to cook this or if I want to watch hunting, it's all in the same place. Mm-hmm. And there just aren't that many options out there. YouTube is one of them and the main one. How you get away from that, I don't know. I'm not saying you can't be in other places, but all in all, that will always be where the eyeballs are.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it comes down to a network being like recognizing the audience of hunting viewership that's out there and purchasing content is what it comes down to.
Well, and while you're on YouTube, might as well subscribe to this podcast.
Yeah, give us a watch. In the meantime,
we're not going anywhere. But we appreciate you listening to Brennen Nading on this episode of HUNTR Podcast and The Breaking Point. Go over, check those guys out. I'm sure they've got some great content that's going to be dropping here over the next few weeks in the fall. And we're going to start getting our mind wrapped around opening day this weekend in Ohio and try to freaking kill something.
Yeah, I got to try to take it. It's funny how like the entire off season, my brain is like, yes, deer hunting, hype. And then as soon as it gets here, it's hard. Like, yeah, it's a grind for sure. You have to just kind of, pace yourself and take every day as it comes. Like I want it to be like, oh, okay, I've prepared all summer. Now I'm ready. It's like I've done all the work this season, but now it's like patience and just wait to see how it kind of pans out.
Well, and also like we talked to the buck that you're potentially going to go after this weekend, like if you don't go after him by Monday, likely his pattern's changing. He ain't going to be doing the same thing.
Maybe.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting, but at least we're in the game and, we're going to give it hell. And hopefully you guys are listening to this and being like, oh, yeah, you guys both tagged out this past weekend.
That'd be sweet.
That would be awesome. But
time will tell.
Time will tell. All right. We appreciate you guys listening to this HUNTR Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Later.